Southern Poverty Law Center is now facing criminal charges. Not possible because an indictment has now come up by a grand jury in the Middle District of Alabama. Just moments ago behind me, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel held a news conference announcing this indictment, which included bank fraud and wire fraud and some other serious allegations. This was an indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center as an entity, not specific people. Now, the agency began 55 years ago, John, focusing on racial equity via legal services and other advocacy in the South. It spread nationwide. The indictment alleges that the organization paid leaders of the Ku Klux Klan and other controversial groups while they were supposedly in public trying to stop the hatred. According to the indictment, the organization created bank accounts for fictitious organizations, passed from the Southern Poverty Law Center to two sham accounts, then to prepaid cards. It was used to shield funds, according to the DOJ. 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. Now, the SPLC was paying leadership groups that started the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. You remember that several years ago. That's where Heather Heyer tragically lost her lives. Somebody was paid $270,000 by the agency over 8 years. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche joined the FBI director to make the announcement. Watch.
The SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred.
Now, the SPLC, knowing that charges were possible, put out a statement hours ago, said the use of informants was necessary because we are no stranger to threats of violence. In 1983, our offices were firebombed, and in the years since, there have been countless credible threats against our staff. For decades, we engaged in unprecedented litigation to dismantle the Klan and other hate groups. In light of that work, we sought to protect the safety of our staff and the public. We frequently shared what we learned from the informants with local and federal law enforcement, including the FBI. Now, the group says it no longer uses paid informants. The SPLC also put out a report last May criticizing Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk. Several months later, he was shot and killed at a Turning Point rally in Utah. But long before his assassination in August 2012, John, a man in Washington, D.C. opened fire on a security guard at the Family Research Council. At the time, the head of the Family Research Council blamed the Southern Poverty Law Center for including the Family Research Council on a group of hate organizations, and they believe that there was a connection there. Of course, the Southern Poverty Law Center denied that at a time, but at this point, an indictment for one of the biggest groups, as you mentioned, in the United States by the Justice Department.
Sir, my message is simple. Jews, homosexuals, Mexicans, and all kinds of different chanks stink, and I hate it.
What exactly is your problem?
How much time you got, buddy? First of all, they're lazy, good-for-nothing tricksters, crack-smoking swindlers, breathing all the white man's air. They eat up all the chicken. White power! Let's talk about Chinese people.
Let's talk about Chinese people, Jerry. You trying to break me? Jerry tries to break me every single morning, and that one sent me. I hope they bring back the Chappelle Show. Chappelle Show was healing for America. Clayton Bigsby, an icon of our time, a man who truly showed that America can be a melting pot with a black KKK member. That is exactly what the SPLC has done. It's exactly what Jussie Smollett has done. There is a supply and demand problem for hate crimes in America, and it's actually because of our founding. It's because of how incredible our country is. There's no shortage of hate crimes in Europe. There's no shortage of hate crimes all around the rest of the world. Sectarian violence and gang violence rules the day, but not here. Why is that? I'm going to respond to Vivek Ramaswamy, who said something that I thought was extremely wrong-headed and disrespectful last night at a Turning Point event. I'm going to respond to him also tonight at a Turning Point event that I'm going to be hosting in Baylor, and I hope that you can join us if you're in the Waco area or in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. Drive on down to Baylor. It should be a fun time. But ladies and gentlemen, all of these narratives kind of collide together, and we have a short show because we got to catch a flight. So let's get rocking and rolling. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. Jerry, you sent me with that meme. It's a really funny meme. Thank you for that one. I needed that this morning. DOJ says Southern Poverty Law Center, far left-wing group, funneled $3+ million to white supremacist and extremist groups in order to fund the hate that they said they were trying to destroy so that they could raise more money. Democrats win Virginia redistricting fight, threatening Republican House majority, and Andy Ogles joins the show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. A little quick on the trigger there, Klein. Little quick on the trigger. That's all right. I would appreciate that. I would appreciate that instead of being slow. You know, like I go fast instead of going slow, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of going slow, don't be slow to unlock the potential of a debt-free life. It is something that is biblical. It's something that's moral. It's something that's good. And let's be honest, interest rates are insane. Jump over to my friends at American Financing. We talk about them a lot. They are locking in the listeners of this program to ensure that they can have a debt-free future. Reconsolidate your debt and make sure that you get rates that are not usury rates. They should be illegal, quite frankly. Here's the kicker. If you start today, you could actually make money. You could save or delay 2 mortgage payments. American Financing is America's home for home loans. Call them at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Okay, so last night, I just want to like pop this up because a little bee in my bonnet here. It made me a little angry. Because it's wrong. You know, it's just wrong. And it's something that Charlie wouldn't have agreed with, and it's certainly something that we don't agree with, and I want to denounce it, frankly, here on the program. Vivek said this at a Turning Point event. Now, by the way, like, just want to let you know, like, this is about good faith debate. And in the interest of the future of our party, in the interest of the future of our movement, and our country, you have to be able to call out your own side. And what Vivek said last night, in part, he gave a good speech, but this is like fundamentally wrong. You can travel to Italy, but you'll never be an Italian. You can travel to France, but you'll never be a Frenchman. You can live in Germany, you'll never be a German. You can pack your bags and go to China or Japan, but you'll never be Chinese or Japanese. But you can come to America, and as long as you work hard, you're an American. As long as you have the right paperwork, you're an American. Nope. No, I fundamentally disagree. Not only do I find this particularly insulting to the people that built America, because there is an ideology that built America. Every country has an ideology that built them, but it's fundamentally disrespectful to what it means to be an American. Let's rip through this. I think, like, because the argument actually defeats itself, and it's an insane thing. I mean, he's getting ratioed here into the sun. It's par for the course for Vivek on X. And I say this out of no personal animus. I know Vivek, I like Vivek, but you have to be able to call out people who are wrong. What is it that makes being an Italian, Frenchman, German, Chinese, or Japanese better than being an American? Maybe that's a good starting point there. Why is it that those are protected cultures and we're not? Answer me that. Why is it that you can't be a Chinese person or a Japanese person? And by the way, I agree with that. I agree with the top half of what Vivek says. But what is it that makes America nothing? Because what this is saying is that anyone can be an American, and that's not true. Our founders didn't believe that. They certainly didn't believe that for the first 200 years of this country. You can't go to the North Sentinel Islands and grab a cannibal off an island, still exists, uncontacted tribe, give him the right paperwork, and he's suddenly an American. Why is that? And why are these other cultures protected when our culture is not? And that is truly at the root of the problem here. And it's because we don't acknowledge what our culture is. So why don't we do a quick history lesson here? Our culture is European. Our culture is Christian. For the first 200 years of this country, over 90% of our population were European Christians, different denominations of Christians, but they were Christians. That is plus 90% of the nation. There were de minimis, I mean, like at statistically 0% of the country was Hispanic or Asian origin. There were Africans here from the slave trade. That's been part of the American fabric while we were still colonies. But nonetheless, to not fundamentally say that America is different and better than the lands that people are leaving to come here because of our founding and because of who founded our country, is being obtuse or intellectually dishonest and, quite frankly, disrespectful. Nobody named Muhammad fought in the Civil War. Okay? And nobody named Vivek Ramaswamy fought in the Civil War, for that matter. And so you are disrespecting the reason why this country is great in the first place, which is foundationally our Christendom heritage, which, of course, all of our founders were Christian. All of them were deists. All of them wrote about the fundamentals of Christ, and they wrote those fundamentals directly into our founding documents. Peppered all throughout our founding documents are calls back to Christ, Christendom, and God. It's on our currency, it's on our building, it's carved in marble. So you can't have a country like this, and John Adams, who's a founding father, said that. You can't have this nation without a holy, moral people. This is a nation that is foundationally, at its core, based on the tenets of the Ten Commandments, the New Testament, the Gospel, and the worldview of Christendom, which is a wonderful world. It's what makes this place so exceptional. And now allow me to, now that we've covered the history lesson, allow me to fast forward here and to look at this utterly self-defeating argument. Because, man, it pisses me off, frankly. Because the top half of the tweet defeats the bottom half of the tweet. Because he's right, technically, on the top half of the tweet. You can't just move to Italy and become an Italian. Answer me this. I'm in Florida. If you took all the people in Florida, all of them, and you were to snap your finger and they all went to Italy, and then you took all the people in Italy, you snap your finger and they all moved to Florida. They're kind of the same shape, right? Both land masses are like peninsula, right, shaped or whatever. Would Italy stay Italy? Answer me this. My executive producer is Italian. His name's ALX. He goes to Italy actually all the time. The birthday of Rome yesterday. No, I can tell you I live in Florida. There are a bunch of yeehaws in the state. They're hilarious. They're fundamentally different than Italians. Italy is the culture of the people. The songs, the language, the traditions, the food. That is what Italy is. Italy is not the rocks and the trees on the landmass. It is the human beings that make the nation. That is why you're not an Italian if you move there from India. You're not. And you never will be. You could be a paperwork Italian, meaning you could have the right to work there, I guess, legally and pay taxes. But what we understand is Italian culture, that is a thing, right? It is something that deserves to be protected. Just like it, and I agree that it deserves to be protected. You shouldn't water it down with infinity third world mass migration. And that's why this entire ideology is self-defeating, and it's what we must fight. Because it is worth preserving what it means to be French. It is worth preserving what it means to be German. It is worth preserving what it means to be Chinese, Japanese, Russian, and Saudi Arabian, for all I care. These are cultures that are distinct, and their distinctions are valuable. And you can't just move all the people from one culture into America and call them Americans and think we're going to preserve our culture. No. This is the Club for Growth, a Chamber of Commerce way to view populism, which is that America is simply for tax cattle, that is simply an economic zone, that we don't have our own culture that is derived from our European ancestry and our Christian ancestry. And if you unmoor yourself from that, if you unlink yourself from that, the entire nation is lost. Why is it okay for France to have their culture, for China to have their culture, for Japan to have their culture, but America doesn't have our culture? There's nothing worth preserving about American culture, is what this tweet says. I disavow it. Fundamentally, it is something that is, quite frankly, a ideological cancer that has led to the current state of America. It's the last thing I'll say on this, and sorry that I popped off. Sometimes you got to be able to say these things. The only way we have a land, the only way we keep a country, is if you have neighbors that speak your same language. That's true. And everybody knows it in their bones. If you have neighbors that you can communicate with. There's a map, ALX, I don't know if you have it available, a map of who is proficient in English. It's like something like 10 states where 50% of the people don't even know English anymore. Well, that's not a country. That's not a nation. That's not a melting pot, even though that entire idea is absurd on its face and it was manufactured propaganda in the first place. That wouldn't work as in your marriage. That wouldn't work as a business partnership. That wouldn't work if it was on your softball team and the first baseman didn't speak your language. You wouldn't win a game. Pitcher and the catcher don't speak the language. So it doesn't work as a country either. What works as a country is when you have people that come here utterly, if there are immigrants, and of course my family immigrated here about 100 years ago, but my family immigrated here, like disavowing entirely where we came from. It's like a mishmash of like England and Germany, and embracing wholly the American culture, the superseding American culture, leaving entirely the old world behind. That's not what's happening here, is it? We're constantly talking about the number of Hindu temples that are being built, mosques that are being built, and fundamentally, that's not American. What do I mean by that? That's not what has been American culture. That's not what is the prevailing culture in this country. As Brendan Gill eloquently says, I want my children not growing up in the call to prayer for a mosque or inside of the caste system in their schools. And those exist, by the way, all throughout the country. Percentage of the total population with limited English proficiency in states in 2021. Look at this. Wow. There are 9 states where 10% of the population doesn't speak English. There's like a dozen states where 10% of the population, where over 10% of the population, approximately 10% of the population, 5 to 10% of the population doesn't speak English. Whoa. Well, that's not a country. I mean, like those aren't people that you could trust to help if there's a fire on your block, because you wouldn't be able to communicate with them. This is what I'm talking about. And so that entire worldview needs to be called out. I plan on doing that tonight at my Turning Point event, and saying that we need to be extremely we'll lose the country. The country will spiral into what the rest of the world has, which is sectarian violence and intergroup victimhood positioning, if we do not think very, very carefully about the way that our immigration system works and how it works for the benefit of the American people. That's the point of immigration, actually. And having people that don't speak English and are on permanent welfare, as we covered yesterday, Afghans, Somalis, Haitians, they're on like rates of welfare that are 80 and 90%. That is not adding to the wealth and the prosperity of the American people. It is subtracting from it. It's not addition, it's subtraction. It's good to be able to have these conversations, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Sorry for the rant. Rant over. I want to bring in our guest for today's show. We can cover the hysterical news out of the DOJ with Representative Andy Ogles, who's been very patient as I sort of bang on and on this important subject. But they're tied. They're linked. In very short, so that I can set up the congressman here, the DOJ was able to expose entirely the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a far left-wing group that allegedly fights hate. This group paid the KKK and other white supremacist groups in order to create hate. Do you see the supply and demand problem there? There's a supply and demand problem with hate crimes in America. This is why they have to create a Jesse Smollett. This is why Jesse Smollett has to pay black guys to beat him up. This is why they have to put innocent men in prison for George Floyd. There's a hate crime deficiency in America, and that's because of our Christian founding. Christianity, a peaceful religion. It's because of the founding of this nation that brought people together and did not allow atomization of groups, the atomizational, like any cannibal can be an American. He's just a cannibal. No, that's idiotic, actually. No, it's fundamentally wrong. And so the Southern Poverty Law Center realized that their grift, they'd go out of business if they didn't have more hate crimes. And so they needed to create more hate crimes, and they paid for them. It's wild, ladies and gentlemen. That's what the DOJ is alleging here. They did a big press conference on it yesterday. I want to bring on the congressman who I'm sure is primed and ready to talk about this onto the program, Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee, who's just bang on the subject. Let's go. Congressman, sorry for my rant off the top there, but maybe we just start with this. But I just fundamentally reject that, there's 9 billion people on this planet. I fundamentally reject that all 9 billion of those people can become an American with the right paperwork.
Well, I mean, this is part of a larger narrative that you're seeing from the left, right? They're constantly attacking our heritage, our culture, our values. And if you put up an educated debate, then they call you a racist or a bigot, or they manufacture crimes to incite your opponents to come after you. I mean, there's a cycle here, right? So Ilhan Omar's talking about how Somalis helped build this country. Oh, bull crap. Right? There weren't Muslim prayer rooms in the United States of America until 1920. The first one was in Chicago. Wasn't a mosque in this country until 1934. It actually was built up in Idaho because of the railroads, because you had displaced Syrians from the Ottoman Empire that came to this country to work on the railroad. So if anybody was talking about what the founding fathers were contemplating, it was Baptists and Methodists and Puritans and Quakers. It wasn't Islam. In fact, Jefferson and Adams met with the ambassador because of the Barbary pirates to say, why do you keep attacking our ships? And the ambassador said, it's because you're not Muslim and it's our job to kill you. I mean, they wrote about the fact that they are a people content with war. And so this idea of attacking who we are. And so you're right. We're not a melting pot. This is not some giant fondue pot. I like fondue, right? But that's not what America is, right? And so this is, and I understand what he was trying to say, but the delivery, I think, and ultimately his misunderstanding of who we are as a people. If you want to be an American, you've got to earn it, right? You've got to be part of our culture. You've got to own and be a part of our heritage. You have to want to build this country in the same way our founding fathers did. And so if you're building temples or mosques and you're undermining Christianity, you're not assimilating.
That's exactly right. And it also, it's unbelievably disrespectful to say that these other cultures have the right, because these other cultures are real cultures, they have the right to exclude people who aren't Chinese and aren't Japanese. That's a thing. It's crazy, Congressman. It's not exactly what I wanted to spiral off and talk about here, but I saw that in my timeline this morning. I said, man, this is what I got to go in on. It's there are people. There is something that built China, right? It's why you go to China and you take photos of the Great Wall of China. You take photos at these big old temples, right? That they have there in Japan. You go and you take photos with the Eiffel Tower. Something built the Colosseum, right? Yeah. And we think about that as Roman and then dispersely Italian. Yeah. And so to reject that, to say that doesn't matter, your ancestors don't matter at all, and what the cultures and the foundations that built this great society, that is worth preserving. That's what the top half of the tweet says. That French, German, English, Chinese, Japanese, that's worth preserving. America's not worth preserving. It is the most self-defeating, for a smart guy, it's the single most self-defeating argument I've ever seen in one tweet.
Well, and then you look at the crime rates in Europe. You look at London, you look at France, you look at Italy, and all the migrants that they've allowed into their country, where they're 6 to 10% of the population, but 50 to 60% of the sex crime. Doesn't sound like that they're the new UK or the new France. They're not French anymore. They brought their third world values to France. They brought their third world values to the UK, and they're raping their way across Europe. That's what they've invited in, which is why I've been so vocal on this issue. They're not like us. They don't think like we do. In Guatemala, every 14 minutes, a 14-year-old gets pregnant by an adult. I don't want those type of people here, right? I'll say that again. Every 14 minutes, a child gets pregnant by an adult. And those people have come here en masse. So they look at your daughter differently. And so we've got to have this conversation about who's coming across our border and what it's
great point.
The characteristics that you have to come here. And if you don't like this country, just get the hell out.
It's a great point. I look forward to like having a debate. You know, apparently you can find Ilhan Omar wandering around the halls of Congress. Sometimes reporters get a chance to ask her questions. Like, you know, when you look at the actual data, you know, Ilhan Omar calls herself a feminist, right? But if you look at the data of Somalia, there can't be a worse land for any woman to live in.
Right.
And the amount of child brides, like incest, by the way, like the UN says that Somalia has the highest coefficient of incest of any country on earth. But also child brides is like an absolutely regular cultural thing there. Well, like no feminist, this is why leftism is just so retarded and so self-defeating. Like no feminist would ever be in favor. Like if you ask a feminist, are you in favor of child brides? For like forcing women into child bride, and then forcing women to marry their own family members, right? To engage in like tribal strength.
Right.
They'd shriek in your face, of course, and they'd say no, and they'd be right. By the way, they'd be right because those things are like wrong and evil and culturally.
And they would call you a racist or
of course,
you know, a bigot or something for even.
But then if you
bringing it
say,
up.
"Are you for infinity Somalian immigration?" They'd say yes. So they're wantonly bringing the things that they hate into the country.
There's a reason they left. Yeah.
How do you defeat that? How do you defeat that? Right. Like how do you argue that, Congressman?
Yeah. You can't. I mean, it's completely illogical, and that's why you know, at large, you know, the Democratic Party doesn't have true leadership or a platform for solutions. Right. It's all about creating a crisis, which is really kind of the gist of the press conference from the FBI and the DOJ. They create a crisis. They want you dependent on them, and then suddenly they ride in on a white horse. But when you look at the basis of the foundation of what they've built, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all lies and stealing, just like the referendum in Virginia. If you look across the board, early voting, day of voting, it was a fairly even split. But then suddenly the mail-in ballots are like 75-25. Like you can predict this. You can see this coming. There's a whole separate conversation about, you know, we should have anticipated it. We should have had a better turnout model on our side. But that's a separate conversation. It kind of.
So you think the election last night to gerrymander Virginia, which, by the way, let me just set the framing for all of this. So it came down 51-49. That's how they won. That's how they always win. That's always the percentage. That's the percentage of Joe Biden in every single algorithmically won swing state. It's always that exact same. Yep. And that's for every Georgia Senate seat that they stole as well. Like it's 51-49 every single time. That's the numbers they plug into the computer, right, in order to get the results. But you know, I chuckled to myself when I saw the final numbers this morning. What that is 51% of the population stripping away the civil right of representation from 49% of the population. That's how you get a civil war.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's how you get, I mean, that's like almost a human right violation, but it certainly is constitutionally a massive violation. And you can't have like these limited. Kamala Harris won Virginia by what, 4.5 points?
Right.
And now it's 1-9, 1-10, a congressional split.
Yeah.
With Northern DC controlling 6 different congressional districts.
That's right.
Congressman, this is a broken system.
It is broken, but you also look at the math. I mean, like, again, early voting, day of voting, it was a fairly even split, and the mail-in ballots, you know, are disproportionately out of skew from like the population at large, the mass majority of the votes. And so that tells you something is off. There was a coordinated, manufactured result with the mail-in ballots, which is what the Democrats are good at. I mean, that, you know, you saw it in the presidential election when Trump was defeated, is that suddenly there was all of these mail-in ballots because, you know, oh, wait, we need 10,000 more ballots. Oh, look, we found a box under the table, and, you know, they're not postmarked or stamped or anything, but that's okay. You know, we're going to sue to make sure they're counted. And so that's what they do. And they lie, cheat, and steal, which again, the Save America Act, you know, 83% of Americans think that you should be a citizen to vote, and yet the Senate won't do anything. Well, we're literally handing the next election to the Democrats if the Senate doesn't get that passed. I don't know what the crap Thune is thinking. There's no reason they shouldn't be passing this right now.
Congressman, I believe your mic. Yeah, there we go. Did your mic just fall? Okay, thank you. I just heard
It did.
There we go. Here we go. Take the Congressman off screen here, and then producer can pop him back on. Yep. And you producer can check with the Congressman and just let me know. Because I have nothing. I have. Yep. Good. Okay. Sorry about that, Congressman. Give you some dignity as you reestablish. As you
I
get your
talk
mic
with
back.
my hands, you know.
Yes. So you believe that the Virginia election was rigged and stolen? Do you think that the Trump administration should put a little pressure on Virginia?
Just look at the numbers, follow the numbers, and see where they lead. And I think
$65 million of dark money that went in.
Just crazy.
All of it was outside of Virginia.
Sure. I mean, but again, that's what they do. But this was a predictable outcome. And where are the Republicans? Why wasn't this not a priority? Look at the money that's being spent against Massey. Look at the money that's being spent in the Texas AG race. When we had this right in front of us that literally can determine the future, the course of our nation, and somehow or another we didn't deliver a victory. I have a problem with that. And I think there should be some really tough conversations had about that. Who was responsible? How it could have been, the outcome could have been different, and whether or not people should be fired.
Yes. Well, I mean, we have the map up right here. Look at look at this. 49-51. Just like you plunk it right into a machine. This is the numbers. It's always the numbers. This is the numbers in the Brazilian election.
That's right.
It's always the same. And then as soon as the left seizes power, which is what they did in Virginia, as soon as the left seizes power, they immediately rigged the game, and they called it fairness. This isn't fairness. This is stripping the rights away from Virginians. This is what it is. It's total and complete disenfranchisement for the red state of Virginia, which just had a Republican governor. I mean, it's like a couple months ago, they had a Republican governor. And now in the time span of a few weeks, Democrats have stripped all power from Republicans and disenfranchised them and frankly, taken away their civil rights.
It'll be interesting. Ultimately, there'll be a lawsuit. It'll go to the Virginia Supreme Court. I would expect that they'll uphold the referendum, but we'll see. But it should never have gotten this far. Republicans should have had a better turnout model. We should have won that. And quite frankly, you should have a representative government in Virginia, which now you won't because of the referendum.
Oh, it's totally evil. It's what they're going to do to the entire rest of the country. I mean, they're signaling all of this. I can't let you go, Congressman, without asking about my favorite topic, which is Ilhan Omar's financial disclosures. How do you just like suddenly magically find liabilities that make you not a multimillionaire? Have you ever? Well, we know each other. I saw you. I've hung out with you once or twice socially, right at John Rich's house. Like you didn't come up to me and be like, "Hey, I'm a multimillionaire."
Yeah, right.
Like no. Accidentally. Like this is not normal things for people.
I'm a working class dude, man.
Yeah. So how does that happen exactly? Is that a crime to lie on those documents? Just it's such an egregious extent.
Ultimately, they'll do their investigation. They'll take a look at it. Mistakes happen, but typically they're smaller. I think there's about a $30 million mistake, and it was being widely reported. I guess that's the context of is that her wealth was being inflated, and it was a big media cycle, right? It was part of the story and the narrative, and then suddenly you find that actually that's not true. And so, was there a bankruptcy? Like what happened? I'm not going to prejudge, but there's a lot of questions that have to be asked there. But again, kind of shifting to the DOJ in this press conference, people need to understand that this conspiracy that was built by the left to paint the right as racist and Nazi and violent is totally fabricated. So that begs the question: this heat map that they created, this vile contempt for Republicans, how did that play into Charlie Kirk's murder? Were they there on January 6th? Like you have millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, even in Nashville, you had the Patriot Front. They were posing as Nazis, marching in Nashville, right? You have a conservative organization, several in my district, that are on this heat map of being, the alt-right hate groups. And even here in D.C., where you had someone go into the Family Research Council and shot at a security guard, these types of things, there's a pattern and violence that follows this heat map, that follows what they were doing and what they were paying these conspiracies to incite violence against Republicans and to have people like me targeted. I mean, I have 24-hour security because of this type of rhetoric that is leveled against conservatives in this country, and that should be a crime, and kudos to the DOJ for going after it.
Klein has the hate map right here. Congressman, you can see there's plenty of little red dots on the SPLC hate map in your state. There it is.
Right there.
Wow. So they're potentially funding your assassination. And you said that because they went after Charlie Kirk and they did it constantly. Charlie said that the SPLC is a hate group. There's a tweet for everything. Charlie was constantly on Fox News talking about the SPLC, attacking him. We have the clips, of course. Do you believe that they played a part in Charlie Kirk's murder? What do you think should happen to them? Do you think that there's culpability here since they were actually funding the hate that they claim to be fighting?
Absolutely. If you and I did that, they would be coming after us. They threw everything at us that they could.
Of course.
And so, I mean, again, just follow the facts. Don't prejudge, but I think the facts lead to an ultimate conclusion is that this crisis that they were creating, this crisis of hate, that suddenly they need to take down Confederate monuments in Virginia because of all this hate crime that they paid for, right? You have the riots in the streets, whether it's Charlottesville or elsewhere, that they were paying for, right? That they brought the gasoline, they brought the matches, and they hand them to some homeless guy and they lit it. Like they knew what was going to happen. And so this kind of nonsense has got to stop. And again, if the right was doing this to the left, I mean, we all would have been in jail.
Do you think that they're funding Patriot Front? Do you think that's what's going on? Patriot Front's constantly in Nashville, right, with their little vans and their little outfits.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just follow the money. And this organization supports this organization, supports that organization. It's an incestuous octopus. The tentacles are spread all throughout the left. Look, this is a criminal enterprise that's been undermining our republic. And again, I kudos to the DOJ for going after this. And really, I mean, it can't be lost, ladies and gentlemen, when you think about the murder of Charlie Kirk, when you think about some of these hate crimes that have happened across this country, would they have happened had it not been for this vile rhetoric from the left? Even yesterday against me, CARE held a press conference labeling me as some racist because I'm defending my country, because I'm speaking the facts about the data in Europe about the mass rape of women and young girls in Europe by Muslims. Those are facts. Those aren't my statistics. That's from the French Interior Ministry. That's from the London police, right? I talk about that publicly and suddenly I'm a racist. No, I can just read data points. And the data points say that Muslims are disproportionately raping young girls across Europe. People should know that. They should just know it, right? Because it's fact and it's truth, and I'm not going to back down.
Data is racist, Congressman. You know that. That's the rule. Right. All right. That's the iron law. That data is racist. Don't talk about America's founding. Don't talk about who actually created this country. It's just an economic zone. Don't talk about like why America is great, like in the first place. Like why is America a nation that like who are the actual settlers here? Who were the actual people that settled this country? And then who are the aptly named don't talk about those things. It's racist. We're going to talk about them, and we're going to thank you, Congressman, for always talking about them. Follow Andy Ogles right here, the great congressman from Tennessee. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers, and you know why. Godspeed, Congressman.
Thank you.
Well, we covered what we needed to cover in the show. Sort of like went through the news blocks there with the congressman. Obviously, Democrats rigged and stole another election. And exactly the perfect algorithmically perfect 5149. It's amazing how that always happens. And then the SPLC was exposed as also rigging hate groups. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. They were funding. Just real quick, let's put up one banger. My screen, let's put up one banger. Here we go. Here's what the far left was funding. This is what the far left anti-hate group was funding. KKK, American Nazi Party, Aryan Nation, United Klans of America, Unite the Right, National Alliance, National Socialist Movement, Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, and the American Front. I'm going to tell you how this all gets woven together in just 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. First off, the thing that weaves every single one of my dinner together, that's called the weave, Klein, okay, is masa chips. Okay, you want to talk about the thing at the center of the table, including last night, which was taco night? Called Taco Tuesday in the Johnson household, and it was masa chips. Masa chips, baby. They're incredible. They're good for you. Can't say that about virtually any other chip. They're made with all natural ingredients and just 3 of them. That's all you need. And it takes a little bit of extra effort, but man, is it worth it to make chips this way. You feel good. nice, satisfying crunch. Ladies and gentlemen, you should give them a try. Go to monsterchips.com/Benny. Remember, I have a very picky wife, very maha mom wife. We don't just let any food, we don't let practically no food and no processed food in our home. Use code Benny for 25% off. Simply click the link in the video description, use the QR code, and claim the delicious offer. Don't feel like ordering online? Masa is now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. And then bop it on over here, ladies and gentlemen, as we travel today. Patriot Mobile will be in our back pocket. They have had our back and our side, and they have been there for us throughout so much. They keep us connected on the road. Of course, we will be recording and live streaming tonight from Baylor. Get prioritized premium service on all 3 major networks, better coverage backed by 100% US-based customer support, the only Christian conservative wireless provider. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT to use the promo code Benny for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/Benny. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it all weaves together. Joe Biden, he constantly used, and even through the presidential debates with Donald Trump, both of them, by the way, including the one that he, of course, was like brain dead at, constantly banging on about Charlottesville. Oh, is it a post? There's like a million times that he says it, but whatever. There's a bunch. Okay, so it's just constantly. Biden claimed the entire reason that he ran for president in 2020 was because of Charlottesville, and now we find out today, and this is the core mythos of Joe Biden. The core tenet of his political life is Charlottesville, and everyone was so hateful. Can we get some sound on this? Yeah.
I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville in August of 2017.
Got it. Okay, that's all we need.
Extremists.
Yeah, it's extremists funded by you, Jack. They're funded by you. You created. There's a supply and demand problem for hate crimes in America. This is the functional mythos of the Democrat Party. They actually created the hoax. They created the Russia hoax. I can't believe it. They did the same thing. Whatever video that is perfect. Right. So you can see what the Charlottesville, rally was, and certainly some ugly images. And you need to go through and match the images to how much were these people getting paid? They were all being paid. Maybe not all of them, but certainly some of them. Here, according to your own federal government, for the Unite the Right Charlottesville rally, close to $300,000. $300,000, bro. We put on events. I put on events. Turning Point puts on events. You can throw a heck of an event for $300,000. You could actually pay for all the buses. You could pay for all the tiki torches. You could pay for the whole thing with $300,000. Is that what they did? I guess we'll wait and see. Where is this being tried? Here's why this is such a genius move. Where is this being tried? Alabama, said Forrest Gump. Alabama. It's being tried in Alabama. It's a genius move by the Trump administration. Genius move. Okay. So we hope that nobody burned their face off with their little tiki torches. Red light on the face is actually good for you if you're doing it correctly. Bond charge is how I get my red light, especially when I'm going to be, I don't know, we're going to be traveling all day. You're probably stuck in an office all day too. I hope not, but that's just the way that it goes. If you're stuck in the office all day, you need red light. Your body needs red light. The Bond Charge infrared sauna blanket is amazing. It helps ease stress and unwind. It detoxifies you before bed. And it's something that actually boosts your body energy because it works via infrared light that heats up your body directly rather than the air around like in a traditional sauna. It's incredible benefits. That's why I use it to de-stress and unwind. And sometimes at the end of the day, I got to tell you, that is quite a feat because I go directly from doing this straight home to 1 million kids that want every second of my attention. I love giving that attention to them. Oh boy, it is a lot of horsey rides. Okay, there's a lot of running around. You got to chill out before bed. Sauna blanket's a great way to do it. Go to bondcharge.com/Benny if you're like me, or even if you just want to feel better at the end of the day or when you're getting up. Go to bondcharge.com/Benny. Use code Benny to save 15%. Use code Benny to save 15% on charge today. Okay, I think I will leave you with a funny video. Why don't we leave you with a funny video, and maybe some good news. President Trump announced a permanent ceasefire with Iran yesterday. That's good. The markets are saying that Trump will announce the end of military operations in Iran by, I don't know, June. Skyrockets. May it skyrockets. Would really like to see it done. What kind of, I have stated very consistently on the show, and I'm going to be interviewing Tom Homan tonight from the administration, that I want the focus on domestic policy issues. And we're going to talk about some of those domestic policy wins tonight with the immigration and deportation numbers, which are good, which are exceedingly good, which are the best they've been in my entire life. But you got to be able to wrap up foreign entanglements. So lock it in, ladies and gentlemen. Hope for the best for the Trump administration. I'm going to read the verse of the day, and then why don't you play all of these Ilhan clips, because they're really funny. Ilhan Omar got trolled, and while I have to head to the airport, Ilhan Omar getting trolled is just the funniest thing ever. Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Please, trust in the Lord with all your heart. You're not going to get life. I don't get life. I don't understand. I don't understand how Ilhan Omar can have a fake winery and be haram and claim that it's worth $5 million when it's worth nothing, when it doesn't even exist. I don't understand those things. You just got to trust in the Lord, and you just got to roll, okay? You just got to roll with life. So, as sea billows roll, ladies and gentlemen, we are rolling out. We'll see you live in Baylor, in Texas, and we look forward to seeing you tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, Christ is King. We march on together, onto the victory that is assured to us. Now here, ladies and gentlemen, are a couple minutes of Ilhan Omar getting trolled in the halls of Congress in order to satiate and leave you with a good, happy, and enjoyable middle week. God bless you. See you on the other side.
It's about your net worth dropping down to about 100,000. Could you just elaborate on what mistake was made, Congresswoman? What mistake was made on your financial disclosure forms to bring it down to 100,000 from up to 30 million? Just want to give you a chance to clear it up because people are wondering why it dropped so far down. Does your husband still have the consulting business worth about $8 million?
Congresswoman Omar, the last time I spoke to you, you said that I was stupid for asking you about your financial disclosure, but there's some discrepancies on there. Would you like to explain that? How did you make such a big mistake on it?
I still do think you're stupid for asking me anything.
I am?
Yes.
Well, what about the American people who are wondering how you made such a big mistake?
I have explained to the American people.
What's the explanation?
I have given them the explanation.
Do you want to tell our viewers? Because
I don't want to tell you jack shit.
Oh.
How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Omar, you were just talking about how Trump's economy has failed the American people, but I think the American people really want to know how you went from a negative 65,000 before coming into Congress to over $30 million in just 7 years.
My disclosure is public now.
Yeah, it is. And so a lot of people now are looking into that and finding S. Crew Winery, a winery that doesn't actually seem to exist. Is that a real winery, or?
Do you all actually look at and read things, or do you just ask silly questions?
Well, it's listed in the financial disclosure, so can you explain it? Because we have a lot of questions about it, and things just aren't adding up. There's no real phone number. There's no real location.
Why did you want to buy some wine?
Probably not from you, to be honest. Recently stated that the American people should be afraid of the white man. They should be fearful of the white man.
I never said that.
Yeah, you're on video saying it.
Our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
No, I did not.
Yes, you.
Again, this is like what I said. You need to prepare yourself because you can't continue embarrassing yourself like this.
So I'm just a liar.
What I was quoting was an actual study done by the FBI.
Okay, thank you.
Just prepare next time.
All right, thank you, Congresswoman.
Sir, my message is simple. Jews, homosexuals, Mexicans, and all kinds of different chanks stink. and I hate it.
What exactly is your problem?
How much time you got, buddy? First of all, they're lazy, good-for-nothing tricksters, crack-smoking swindlers, breathing all the white man's air. They eat up all the chicken. White power! Let's talk about Chinese people.
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings. And their dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the penny show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1. Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings.